Queen Camilla has messed with the wrong royals. Explosive inside leaks confirm that after Camilla tried to block a royal bride from wearing a historic tiara, Prince William and Princess Anne just teamed up for a brutal takedown that is sending shockwaves through every corridor of Buckingham Palace. If you thought the royal family had run out of drama to serve, think again, because what just unfolded behind those gilded doors is being described by palace insiders as one of the most significant power shifts we have seen in years. And it all started with a wedding, a tiara, and a queen who apparently forgot that she does not own the royal jewelry vault. Here is exactly what went down. Peter Phillips, Princess Anne's son and the late Queen Elizabeth's eldest grandchild, is preparing to marry Harriet Sperling in what should have been a joyous celebration, bringing the family together. Harriet, by all accounts, has done everything right. She has kept her head down, she has shown nothing but respect for the institution, and she has earned the admiration of senior royals who see her as a refreshing and dignified addition to the family. When a royal bride marries into the family, there is a long-standing tradition that she may borrow a tiara from the royal collection for her wedding day. It is not merely a perk, it is a deeply symbolic gesture that signals acceptance, that says you are now one of us, that connects you to centuries of history and tradition. Queen Elizabeth understood this better than anyone. She loaned tiaras freely and generously to brides who were marrying into her family, from Princess Diana to Sarah Ferguson to more recent additions. She saw it as part of her role to welcome these women and to let them shine on their most important day. But apparently, Queen Camilla sees things very differently. According to multiple sources with direct knowledge of the situation, Camilla's team made it explicitly clear that Harriet Sperling would not be granted access to a royal tiara for her wedding. The reasoning given was flimsy at best, insulting at worst. Some reports suggest Camilla's camp argued that Harriet, not being a working royal, was not entitled to such a privilege. Others whisper that Camilla herself viewed Harriet as an outsider who had not earned the right to wear a piece of history. And then there are the sources who say the real motivation was far more petty, that Camilla simply did not want another woman drawing attention or looking more regal than she ever has on what should be a family celebration. Whatever the excuse, the message was unmistakable. Camilla was gatekeeping the jewels, acting as though the royal collection was her personal jewelry box to dole out or withhold on a whim. The fallout was immediate and fierce. Princess Anne, known throughout her life as the most hardworking and no-nonsense member of the royal family, was reportedly furious. This was her son's bride being humiliated. This was a direct insult to her family line. And make no mistake, Princess Anne does not suffer fools, and she certainly does not tolerate petty power plays against the people she loves. Sources close to the Princess Royal say she was incandescent with rage when she learned what Camilla had done, not just because of the snub itself, but because of what it represented. Camilla was attempting to assert a level of control over the royal family that she has never truly earned in the eyes of the public, or, it seems, in the eyes of the family itself. Anne has spent decades serving the monarchy with a dedication that few can match. She has represented the crown across the world through countless engagements. She has maintained her dignity through every scandal and crisis, and she has earned a respect within the family that is absolutely ironclad. To see her future daughter-in-law treated this way by a woman who many still view as an interloper was, for Anne, the final straw. But Princess Anne is also one of the smartest operators in that palace. She knows that confronting Camilla directly would only create a messy public feud that would damage the monarchy. So she did something far more devastating. She went to the one person who actually has the power to end this nonsense permanently. She went to Prince William. Now, we need to understand why this matters so much. Prince William is not just the Prince of Wales. He is the future king. He is the man who will one day sit on the throne and inherit every aspect of the royal institution, including control over the Royal Collection Trust and the priceless treasures it holds. In the hierarchy of the royal family, William's authority is second only to King Charles himself, and in practical terms, his influence over the future direction of the monarchy is already enormous. When Anne walked into that meeting with William, she was not just a furious mother seeking justice for her son's bride. She was making a calculated move to ensure that Camilla's reign of petty interference would come to an end. The conversation between Anne and William was described by those with knowledge of it as direct, unemotional, and devastatingly effective. Anne laid out exactly what had happened. She explained how Camilla's team had blocked the tiara request, how the justification was transparently weak, and how this was part of a broader pattern of behavior where Camilla was attempting to position herself as the ultimate arbiter of royal privilege. Anne reportedly reminded William that his own mother, Princess Diana, had faced similar struggles with royal jewelry control during her time in the family, and that allowing Camilla to continue this behavior would be an insult to Diana's memory, and to every woman who had ever been made to feel small by the palace's internal politics. She made it clear that this was not about one tiara on one wedding day. This was about the soul of the monarchy, and whether it would be governed by grace and tradition or by spite and insecurity. William listened, and according to every account we have, he did not need much convincing. His relationship with Camilla has always been complicated at best. He has played his part in public, standing beside his father and stepmother with the required decorum. But those who know him best say that William has never forgotten what his mother endured. He has never fully accepted Camilla as a true replacement for Diana, and he has watched with growing frustration as she has attempted to consolidate power and influence since Charles ascended the throne. The tiara ban was not just an insult to Harriet Harriet Sperling or to Princess Anne. In William's eyes, it was another example of Camilla overstepping her bounds, acting as though she were the monarch rather than the consort, behaving with an entitlement that the British public has never granted her, and that the royal family should never have tolerated. What happened next was not a shouting match. It was not a dramatic scene with slammed doors or thrown teacups. It was something far more dangerous for Camilla. It was a quiet, deliberate alliance between the two most formidable figures in the royal family outside of the king himself. William and Anne have always respected each other, but this meeting forged something new between them. It was an understanding that Camilla's behavior could no longer be managed with polite silence or half-hearted compromises behind closed doors. It had to be structurally neutralized so that she could never again wield this particular weapon against anyone in the family. Anne reportedly told William that if Camilla was allowed to control access to the royal collection based on personal grudges and petty jealousies, then no bride in the family would ever be safe from her whims. She pointed out that this was not how Queen Elizabeth operated, and it was not how the monarchy could survive in the modern era if it allowed the queen consort to behave like a jealous courtier from another century. William agreed without hesitation, and together they began to map out exactly how to remove Camilla's fingers from the jewelry vault once and for all. To understand just how significant this moment is, we have to look back at the history of royal tiaras and who actually controls them. For decades, the royal collection was managed with a sense of generosity and duty by Queen Elizabeth II. She understood that these jewels did not belong to her personally in the way a private citizen owns a necklace. They belonged to the institution, to the history of Britain itself, and part of her sacred responsibility was knowing when to share them with the family she was building. When Diana Spencer married Prince Charles in 1981, Elizabeth not only approved the use of the Spencer tiara from Diana's own family, but ensured Diana had unrestricted access to royal jewels for state occasions throughout her marriage. When Sarah Ferguson married Prince Andrew, she was loaned the magnificent York tiara, specifically purchased for her by the Crown. Sophie Rhys-Jones, when she married Prince Edward, was given access to pieces from the collection that reflected her new status. Even Kate Middleton, when she married William in that unforgettable Westminster Abbey ceremony, was loaned the Cartier halo tiara by the Queen as a powerful signal of welcome and approval that the entire world understood. Elizabeth never used the jewels as weapons. She used them as bridges, as symbols of unity, as tools to strengthen the family she was charged with leading. But Diana's story also carries a darker chapter that makes Camilla's current behavior even more galling. During her marriage to Charles, Diana often felt restricted and controlled when it came to royal jewelry. There were well-documented tensions about which pieces she was allowed to wear, and insiders from that era have long claimed that certain influences within the palace worked to limit Diana's access to the most spectacular pieces, partly out of jealousy and partly as a means of keeping her in her place. Diana was the people's princess, radiant and beloved, and there were those who resented how she outshone everyone else whenever she wore a historic diamond or sapphire. The idea that Camilla, the very woman who was at the center of the destruction of Charles and Diana's marriage, is now the one restricting access to royal jewels for a new generation of royal women is almost too painful to contemplate. It is as if history is being forced to repeat itself in the cruelest possible way. And William, who lived through the pain of his mother's mistreatment and watched her light dim under palace pressure, was never going to stand by and let another woman endure the same humiliation. Anne knew exactly which buttons to press when she sat across from William. She did not need to remind him of his mother's tears or the nights Diana spent feeling isolated and powerless within the palace walls. William carries those memories in his bones every single day. What Anne did was connect the past to the present with devastating clarity. She made William see that Camilla's tiara ban was not an isolated incident or a one-time lapse in judgment. It was a symptom of a larger disease, a belief on Camilla's part that she had somehow inherited supreme authority over the royal family simply because she wore a crown beside Charles. Anne made it clear that if they did not act now, Camilla would continue to tighten her grip, using the royal collection as leverage to reward allies and punish those she disliked, turning centuries of tradition into a personal fiefdom governed by her moods and insecurities. For Peter Phillips, this was about protecting his bride from unnecessary cruelty. For Anne, it was about defending her family's honor. For William, it was about ensuring that the monarchy he will one day lead is not poisoned by the same petty tyranny that destroyed his mother. The decision was made that day, quietly and without fanfare, but its impact will be felt for generations. William would use his position as the future monarch and his existing authority within the palace infrastructure to fundamentally alter how the Royal Collection Trust operates when it comes to loans of jewelry for family events. For years, the process had been murky and undefined, with the queen consort effectively holding veto power over who could borrow what and when. That ends now. William allegedly moved to change the access protocols so that decisions regarding family loans from the royal collection would be handled through a formalized committee structure, one that includes senior members of the family and independent trustees of the collection, rather than resting in the hands of one person with a known grudge and a history of pettiness. In practical terms, this means Camilla no longer has the final say. She cannot unilaterally block a bride from wearing a tiara on her wedding day. She cannot decide on a whim that someone is unworthy of wearing a piece of history that belongs to the nation. The power has been distributed, and in the zero-sum game of palace politics, taking away Camilla's unilateral authority is the equivalent of a devastating checkmate that leaves her with no move to make. The sources who have spoken about this unprecedented shift say that Camilla was absolutely blindsided by both the speed and the finality of William and Anne's maneuver. She had grown increasingly comfortable operating with a sense of impunity behind palace doors, genuinely believing that her position as queen consort granted her the moral and practical authority to make unilateral decisions about royal privileges without challenge or oversight. What she fundamentally failed to account for was that genuine respect within the royal family is not granted automatically by a crown, a title, or a marriage certificate. It is earned through decades of visible service, through placing the institution above personal ambition time and time again, and through treating the people around you with the dignity that their station and their sacrifices deserve. Princess Anne has earned that respect 1,000 times over through a lifetime of unwavering duty that has seen her become one of the hardest working royals in modern history. Prince William has earned it by preparing himself to be a king who will not repeat the mistakes and cruelties of previous eras, who understands that monarchy in the 21st century must be earned every single day. Camilla, by contrast, has spent her time in the royal family primarily accumulating influence through her proximity to Charles, rather than through any independent contribution to the monarchy's well-being or public standing. And this latest attempt to wield that influence as a weapon against a young bride has exposed the fundamental hollowness at the core of her authority. For Harriet Sperling and Peter Phillips, the practical and deeply personal effect of this palace revolution is that the path is now completely clear for Harriet to wear a royal tiara on her wedding day with the full blessing and formal authority of the future king himself. The specific piece has not been publicly confirmed, but informed speculation ranges from delicate diamond bands to more substantial historical pieces that would connect Harriet to the long and noble tradition of royal brides who came before her. Whatever she ultimately chooses, she will wear it knowing that two of the most powerful and respected figures in the entire family went to war for her right to do so, and that the woman who tried to deny her that moment of beauty, dignity, and belonging has been permanently stripped of the power to ever make such a cruel and unnecessary denial again. That is not merely a victory for one bride on one special day. It is a profound statement to every future member of the royal family that they will be welcomed and honored according to the enduring values of the institution, not according to the petty insecurities or personal grudges of whoever happens to share the king's residence. But the implications of what William and Anne have accomplished stretch far beyond one wedding celebration or one jewelry loan. What they have done here is effectively redraw the map of palace power in a way that cannot be easily undone by Camilla or anyone who might share her approach to authority. By formally changing the protocols of the Royal Collection Trust to require committee approval for family loans rather than allowing a single individual to exercise veto power, they have created a durable structural safeguard against future abuses of privilege. Even after King Charles's reign eventually ends and William ascends the throne, these new procedures will remain firmly in place, ensuring that the priceless jewels of the crown serve the family and the nation rather than the passing whims of any single individual. It is governance by principle rather than by personality, and in a monarchy that must constantly justify its continued relevance to a modern democratic society, that distinction matters enormously. The British public does not fund this family through their taxes and their tourism so that one woman can play dress-up gatekeeper with national treasures that belong to the country. They support the monarchy because it is supposed to represent continuity, tradition, and a standard of behavior that rises above the petty squabbles and jealousies of ordinary life. When Camilla tried to block Harriet's tiara, she violated that standard in the most visceral and symbolically damaging way possible, and the response from William and Anne was not merely personal retaliation against a slight, it was institutional self-defense on behalf of the monarchy's future. This is precisely why the story has resonated so powerfully with dedicated royal watchers and casual observers alike across Britain and around the world. Ordinary people can see themselves in Harriet's position, standing anxiously on the threshold of a new family, hoping to be accepted and embraced, only to have someone with arbitrary power try to diminish their moment of joy out of pure spite. And people everywhere can feel the deep satisfaction of seeing that arbitrary power checked by those who still believe in fairness, decency, and the proper use of authority. Princess Anne and Prince William have sent an unmistakable signal that the monarchy will not be dragged into the mud by personal vendettas and petty power games, and that the future of the crown will be shaped by leaders who understand that their authority exists to serve others and uphold tradition, not to inflate their own egos or settle old scores. Camilla may still wear her crown in public appearances and sit beside the king at state functions, but everyone inside those palace walls now knows that the real power over the royal collection, and by extension over the symbolic heart of the family itself, has slipped through her fingers forever, never to return. The message is clear, it is final, and it is absolutely devastating for anyone who thought they could turn Britain's royal heritage into a personal toy to be withheld from those they dislike. Is Camilla completely out of control? Drop your truth in the comments.